I just made a top 10 underrated melee weapons video, and I really enjoyed that video, and I think some of you did too. So I decided to make a top 10 underrated and slept on primary weapons. And the first one on this list is the Komorex, an amalgam sniper rifle that is quite unique. The Komorex has two fire modes technically. When you hipfire, it will shoot out projectiles very inaccurately, and if you zoom in once, it'll shoot out projectiles that will give you minus 50% recoil and add +2 punch through. This fire mode isn't the greatest. However, if you zoom in again to the second fire mode, your projectile will now create a 3.5 meter explosion that primes with viral. You will receive minus 75% fire rate and gain 100% damage. But the damage is not just plus 100% base damage added, it's actually a 100% damage multiplier to impact, puncture, slash, and elemental mods on status procs. It pretty much performs or behaves the exact same way as Ash's passive. This bonus actually helps to amplify your dot effects, not to mention the fact that the explosion will already proc viral, which will help us to mod for any other damage over time status effect. Oh, and the Komorex also has built-in ammo conversion, converting all secondary ammo pickups to 100% sniper ammo. Yeah, this weapon has a lot of gimmicks and things tied to it, which is what makes it so nice and underrated, like Opera GX. Thank you Opera GX for sponsoring this video. Are you still happy using your everyday boring browser? No, you want that premium browser experience. Look, it may not be for everyone, but if you are an avid gamer, then you seriously need to download Opera GX. Why do you ask? Well, you have the power of GX mods, a very neat feature that allows you to customize your browser with nearly everything down to the last little detail. Get custom themes, sounds, visuals, background music, keyboard sounds, opening and closing tab sounds, custom fonts, icons, and more. Are you a fan of medieval shenanigans? Well, there's one for you. But are you also an avid anime watcher? Well, screw it. Who says you can't have a medieval theme with anime sounds? That's right, you can interchange any mods you would like to curate your experience. And it doesn't end there. Aren't you just tired of opening a web page and it's littered with ads? Yeah, me too. Don't worry though, Opera GX has a built-in ad blocker. This eliminates distraction and allows you to enjoy the full experience. Busy watching something and then you need to open a new tab? Well, Opera GX has a video pop-up feature that allows you to move it around to your heart's content. It's honestly very handy. Now I know moving to a new browser may be tedious, but you know what? Opera GX allows you to quickly import all of your settings from your previous browser, like your history, bookmarks, and cookies. What are you waiting for? Use my link in the description to download Opera GX today. A huge thank you to Opera GX for sponsoring this video. Onwards with the video. The minus 75% fire rate debuff is actually additive with mods, so you can actually remove this by running Vial Acceleration, or if you wanted to, you can actually use Semi-Rifle Cannonade, which will lock your fire rate. However, there is a problem. The Komorex's explosive projectile doesn't act like other explosive projectile based weapons, in which it would normally explode on the first enemy it hits. Having punch through with this weapon is not a good idea, since it will literally launch straight through your enemies, exploding against the nearest wall or when the punch through technically runs out, which doesn't help us in any way. So you can actually mod for an unranked semi-rifle cannonade that doesn't give us too much punch through and allows us to explode on impact, which will then negate the 75% fire rate debuff from the double zoom fire mode. I would highly recommend for some of these weapons you turn on the fire manual trigger weapons continuously in your settings, especially for the Komorex. So how do we go about building the Komorex? Well, this weapon is an MR8 weapon that can be obtained via the Energy Lab in your clan dojo, which means newer players can use this weapon as well. For a budget setup, I would personally recommend something like this for you. You won't have all of these mods at first, so I would recommend getting Serration, Multi-Shot, and Fire Rate first, then followed by Crit, and filling up the remaining mods as you progress in the game. Now for the Steel Pass players or later game players in general, there are two ways you can actually build the Komorex. One with Aptitude that will help you against single target enemies and will only benefit against the target you are shooting. Remember, explosions are not affected by Aptitude, and remember, the explosion will not proc headshots, specifically the explosion, not the projectile. Or you can drop Aptitude and opt for the Cannonade route to remove the fire rate debuff. Here is the Aptitude Corrosive Heat build. Here is the Cannonade version. Next up is my personal favorite, which is the Gas Komorex build. Again, two options. The Aptitude would only be beneficial for the enemy that you actually hit for that gas cloud to scale off of it. This does help for specific gas clouds to deal a lot more damage, since you would be using a primer for it. However, there is another way to play gas which would be better in some cases if you're using external buffing and so on. and that is actually removing aptitude, putting on cannonade, or keeping vial acceleration. Then we make use of continuous misery. This will help our gas clouds to stay longer, dealing more damage over time. Again, it's your choice how you want to build it. Personally, the gas procs do more than enough damage for base steel pass. If you start scaling, then you can look at something like this. Then we also have a blast build, which is also super fun. I would really recommend this setup if you are a blast fan. It's just a pity the Komorex can't have Elementalist on this since it gives too much punch through, so we'll have to make use of a Bane if you want to scale your blast and gas procs more. The Komorex is absolutely loaded and worth playing, and a very good mid-game weapon. Moving on to the AX52, more specifically the AX52 with the Augment Biotic rounds. Now you actually don't need this augment for it to be great, it's still a good weapon without it, but the augment does make it scale incredibly well. Also, Biotic rounds is a little bit pricey at the moment at around 80 platinum. The AX52 is an MR12 rifle that can be obtained via EMEA from the Hex at rank 4. Its unique trait allows for you to have 60% ammo efficiency when hip firing, and aimed headshots have 400% critical chance. This crit bonus is additive to your mods. The crit bonus is incredibly handy against tougher single target enemies, but the hip fire is great for mass clearing. Now let's talk about this baby right here, Biotic rounds. On weak point kill, gain 150% viral and magnetic damage plus 150% status chance for 15 seconds. So just let me get this straight here. From this mod alone, we have viral boosting all of our health and dot damage, plus magnetic, which will shred through overguarded enemies and apply electricity on them when their shields or overguard breaks. This means you can have corrosive heat, or any other element you want, since Biotic rounds literally gives you, 2 double elements, which is insane. But there are so many ways you can build the AX52, and specifically around the Biotic rounds augment. For example, you can go a corrosive heat setup that will look something like this here, or you can drop your base damage arcane from your weapon and go for something like, let's say, primary crux that will give you status chance and ammo efficiency for when you're aiming in and shooting, and then put arcane rage on your Warframe. Or you can use the original setup I've shown here and use a fire rate arcane on your Warframe, which is the way I opted to play this build. This applies to all of the other builds that I'm about to show for this weapon. You can then go for an acuity version if you're wanting to get those juicy red crits. I also have a full Biotic round setup that focuses purely on buffing the dots like heat or toxin and the magnetic damage from the augment itself. I also have a blast setup focusing on the hipfire to take out all the easier targets and then aiming on the tankier targets. You can also use the Crux synergy with this build too. Here is the budget build for those of you who would like to use this weapon. It's just to test it even without the Biotic rounds augment. Although I will have to highly recommend saving up for it because it makes this weapon incredibly strong and worth the price. A really fun AR with some cool gimmicks with the augment. Next we have the EFV Jupiter. Again, another brand new sculpture weapon that technically shouldn't be considered underrated, but I still feel like it is. It's not the best, but remember this list is more for weapons that are just simply fun. It's a rifle shotgun mix that has an alt fire which shoots out a burst of buckshot that will guarantee a corrosive proc for each pellet, which makes this alt fire an amazing way to pretty much instantly armor strip enemies, especially if you're running 2 green shards on your Warframe. It scales incredibly well with aptitude and heat procs as well. It doesn't really have anything that special like the Komorex has other than its buckshot alt fire. It's just a solid AR, I guess, and it's just fun to play. This is the main build that I use. It's the corrosive heat one, which can be switched out for any other element that you want for any faction. This weapon does have innate corrosive, which allows you to mod for heat by itself, which is incredibly handy and allowing for a bit more flexibility when modding. I mean, you could even go viral heat if you like, because you already have innate corrosive. I also have an acuity version, which does scale very well for those of you who enjoy running acuity builds. Like I said, nothing too fancy, just fun to use. And please, you can use any element you'd like. My builds are purely guidelines and not how you have to play said weapon. Also, this video will not have any incarnate weapons, and I'm sure you've gathered that by now. It's meant to be for just underrated weapons, that's all it is. Up next, we have the Proboscis Cernos. This bow has been mentioned quite a few times in the past, and I'm sure many people do know that it's good, but I felt like it's gone a little quiet and under the radar since other weapons have been released, and I feel like it needs a bit more light because it is pretty underrated in my opinion. The Proboscis Cernos is godly for 2 things, and that is gas and blast. This bow shoots out arrows that spawn tentacles that grab onto nearby enemies, grouping them together and then exploding shortly after. While it is quite expensive, pairing this bow with longbow sharpshot and gas provides some disgusting damage. And the reason for this is longbow sharpshot is a multiplicative bonus to your base damage mods like serration and so on. So you'll need to have some base damage scaling for longbow sharpshot to really start multiplying your damage. In this case, we make use of Arcane Rage on our Warframes, but you can also just put Serration on our actual build. If you don't have a maxed out longbow sharpshot, which is understandable, it's pretty expensive, you can just make use of the normal damage increasing Arcanes. Also, this bow does have innate viral as well, which just helps us even more. And it has slash. For the gas build, we have this one here, or alternatively, you can drop crit entirely and run status duration instead and another quality of life mod. And then we also have a blast build that does a lot of damage with longbow sharpshot, or even just a damage arcane. Just remember the Proboscis Cernos does have very high status chance but very low crit chance, so yes, you will only get 21% crit chance with crit delay on, but with multi-shot that would still proc quite a few critical hits. However, you can drop these if you are not running longbow sharpshot arcane and use base damage like serration and maybe focus on pure dot damage and status. So that's fine, you can do that too. You could even opt for primary crux as well. Here is the budget build for players who don't want to invest as much form in. This bow is absolutely worth it and really fun. The only problem is the 7 ammo capacity can be a little bit of a problem when it comes to ammo, but if you invest a little bit more form for an ammo mutation mod, it does sort it out. Highly recommend giving it a go once again. Next up, we have the Perigale. Perigale? I think that's how you say it. I kinda overlooked this burst sniper rifle. Its unique trait gives you 100% ammo efficiency if you land a headshot kill or 4 headshots in one burst for 4 seconds. The sniper does only have 12 bullets in a magazine, but if you're landing headshots, this won't be a problem. This thing absolutely shreds with this unique trait, especially after the auto-fire on these single weapons change and the accessibility options. It's a 4-round burst rifle that relies on headshots. Scaling aptitude with this bad boy as well as deadhead is the perfect combo. I once again modded for gas because I don't know, I've just been enjoying gas lately. I don't know what it is, but I just am. However, you can mod for blast, corrosive heat, viral hunter munitions, you name it. The Perigale has a nice balance of crit and status chance, especially with multi-shot. It just does so much damage and allows you to mod this weapon in any way really, which is just great. You can technically go acuity, but I wouldn't recommend it personally, since if you miss those headshots, you're quite screwed for the unique trait. You can also make use of the sharpshooter mod for snipers if you'd like some more energy drops. This is the main gas build that I've used. You can go for prime shred if you wanted more punch through, but this weapon already has innate punch through and elementalist adds an extra 0.6, which is more than enough in my opinion. It's up to you. Please by all means change the build to your liking. Here is a flat viral build since it has innate slash, and if the enemy does somehow survive your burst round, your slash procs will destroy them. And here is a blast build, which is also very funny and very strong. I just wanted to say it's a bit overkill to be honest, but it's fun and that's what matters. We then also have a budget build for those of you who would like one. You have full freedom to do what you want with this weapon. It's got the perfect stats to give you whatever you want and however you want to mod it for. It is so underrated and worth getting. Before we go on to the last 5 weapons, could I ask that you smash that like button? It really helps me out a lot. Thank you so much for your time. Alright, up next we have the Phage. I've already spoken about the Convectrix and the Phantasma in previous videos, and I've also spoken about the Phage in the past, but man, I just have to mention it once again because this bad boy is thick with the double C when it comes to status effects. This beam weapon has innate multi-shot of 7 beams, which can be further scaled. They start out all flared out, but hone in on a tight cone in 0.5 seconds, boasting ridiculous amounts of status chance to proc a metric ton of status effects. What is the Phage good for? Well, I'm so glad you asked. Blast, heat, toxin, electricity. No, not gas, but any other dot status effect works incredibly well. Let me give you a squizzle. Here is what our blast build looks like in terms of its damage. You see that, right? The Phage has innate viral as well, which allows us to mod for corrosive very easily and also mod for blast while having viral, which is quite strong. This is what the build would look like, and you can actually drop corrosive entirely if you'd like to use your companion as a corrosive primer. and then make use of Elementalist and a Bane to further increase those blast explosions. And that is not all when it comes to this weapon. Its heat damage scaling is actually beyond disgusting, allowing you to get millions of heat ticks against enemies if they even survive. I would highly recommend adding some punch through on this weapon to help you with dealing with groups of enemies, since this weapon is inherently made for clearing tougher single target enemies. There are two ways you can go about modding for heat. Just have pure viral heat on, that actually does work, and then go corrosive viral heat if you'd like to too. Both work incredibly well. I did opt for primary crux with arcane rage on my Warframe, which works very well. You can also just go for the normal damage increasing arcanes if you'd like, if you don't want to use primary crux. And then we have a corpus killer, which I'll be honest have mercy on any enemy that has shields and overguard, because this setup, yeah, they're dead. Oh, and I opted for primary blight for this setup because we're doing flat toxin, so I thought, you know what, go for arcane rage in my Warframe and use primary blight. For the budget build, here we go. Even the budget build shreds steel path enemies. It is crazy. Now, the Phage can also be used as a brilliant primer if you'd like to. It works very well for that, since it pretty much instantly procs a crap ton of status effects, but I prefer to use it for damage and so on. That's just my personal opinion. This beam weapon is absolutely worth it and underrated 100%. Moving on to the Aeolak, I think that's how you say it. The Thrax Assault Rifle, which by the way has multiplicative CO scaling, which makes this weapon a considerably good weapon in the Steel of the Path. It does have innate radiation, which is only really nice when it comes to crowd control or against the Murmur. But that will not stop us, since the base damage scaling from Aptitude is actually huge. It also has an alternate fire, which shoots out explosive projectiles that deal blast damage in a 7-meter radius, which is not bad for those weaker enemies. Because of Aptitude, it is a wise idea to run a primer with this weapon in some way. I personally use the Doriga, but in terms of how we actually mod the Aeolak, honestly, there are quite a few ways to go about modding this weapon. I personally went for corrosive heat, but you can also mod for magnetic with any other element that you want, or you can go viral too. It is pretty flexible to build, as it has a nice balance between crit and status chance, so you can honestly play around with how you want to mod it. I would suggest keeping Aptitude on, since you have multiplicative damage scaling with this mod, so it is huge. You can also make use of primary crux if you'd like, and there's not much else to talk about other than it surprised me and it's very good. However, the one downside is the farm. It is absolutely terrible, so you may need to consider actually buying it from another player if you want to get this weapon. It is a super fun assault rifle that offers you some pretty good blast explosions for easier targets with some really good damage scaling. Absolutely worth getting. Moving on to the Nagantaka Prime. You can also use the base version, to be fair. This is Garuda's signature crossbow, and it is a slash beast, but it also has a lot of status chance. It has a unique trait called Precision Reload that allows you to do an alternate fire, rapidly shooting out your entire magazine in a single burst. This is also affected by fire rate mods, and headshot kills increase the speed of your next reload by 50%, and you get 1 meter punch through with Garuda. This crossbow only has 11 bolts in your magazine, to be fair, which is not that great. So you can go for pure reload speed or have higher magazine capacity for some more quality of life. Its crit and status chance ratio is very good, allowing you to opt for the pure slash route or just simply any other damage over time status effect. I've gone for a pure slash and blast route. It's really fun, to be honest. For the pure slash build, we go for something like this. Now remember, this setup does have primed mods. You do not need prime mods. You can make a budget by using the base versions, and this applies to every single build in this video. Please remember that. You can also switch out fast hands for more magazine capacity if you prefer that, or you can drop it entirely and go for something else. It is incredibly flexible. You change the build to your liking. Then I have a blast version, which is super satisfying since you have over 100% status chance with this build and very good multi-shot. The blast procs are actually quite respectable. The only problem with the Nagantaka is the low magazine capacity and slow reload. If you can sort those out with external factors from your Warframe and modding, this weapon is actually elite. It is incredibly powerful. You could even go for the primary crux route if you'd like, as well as even fractalized reset, and then put arcane rage on your Warframe. If you want a viral setup, you could use something like this. And finally, I did a little bit of testing with gas and it worked out pretty good, so that's another option if you'd like. Here is what the build would look like. I have been a huge fan of the Nagantaka for quite some time. It is so much fun to play and is slept on. Plus, for this video, I discovered it's good for more than just pure slash damage, which is a bonus in my books. Moving on to the Kuva Quartakk. I love this weapon so much, and I still feel it's underrated and not spoken about enough. This is the only Kuva slash Tenet weapon on this list. I wanted to reserve more of these weapon types as well as kit guns for the next episode. But for now, we are talking about the Kuva Quartakk. It has 2 fire modes, an auto fire when hip firing and a 4-round burst fire when aiming. You can negate this by firing while hip firing to stay in auto, and then aim while still firing if you'd like to constantly shoot in auto while aiming. Personally, the burst fire is actually very nice, and I prefer to use the burst fire. Because it is a Kuva weapon, it has a progenitor, and you can make use of the Valence override to change the elements for your build. This gun is amazing because of its burst fire as well as its decent damage scaling overall. You can go for a pure slash build that looks like something like this if you'd like. You can also even switch out a Bane or Elementalist for hunting munitions. That actually is a very good option if you want more slash damage. Personally, I find it's fine like this, but I would recommend taking out the Bane, as I know some of you don't like Banes, if you wanted to go hunting munitions. Then there is a corrosive heat build for those of you who like that type of thing. Once again, a gas setup, which surprised me. I should make a dedicated video on gas at this point because this video is literally sponsored by Gas and Blast. And guess what? We have a blast build for those of you like, explosions. And of course, a budget build for those of you who would like one. It's just a solid rifle that is fun to play and will work pretty much in most cases. And it's a Kuva weapon with a progenitor, so it is a win. Finally, we move on to the Quanta Vandal. Damn, okay. So this weapon is pretty much like the Phage, except it has innate electricity, which is handy for murmur and so on. But it's the amount of status chance this weapon has, which is what makes it so crazy. Its unique trait allows your alt fire to launch out these weird spinny cubes that will explode after 8 seconds when hitting an enemy, or by simply shooting the cubes, which will then trigger a larger and stronger explosion. This can be pretty good when built correctly, so it is a nice way to play this weapon. But honestly, with a beam weapon and this much status chance, I went all in on blast because why not? Because it has innate electricity, you can go corrosive heat as well, which is also quite strong. For the blast build, I actually went for something like this. I just added in hammer shot. You can change that up, honestly. There is an alternative way to play this, and that is removing hammer shot and vial acceleration, putting on fire rate on your Warframe, and adding in crit chance on your main build. This will increase your damage too. So there's 2 ways you can play this. Again, there is really no specific way of playing any of the builds in this video. Please just play around to your liking. But this hammer shot setup is working perfectly fine for me. You can drop aptitude if you want to add another mod. And when it comes to corrosive heat, it's pretty much the same thing, except we still don't have crit damage scaling, so you can actually drop fire rate or aptitude for vital sense. And then, you can decide how you want to build this and put whatever that is remaining on your Warframe. Here is the budget build for viral electricity, which, by the way, absolutely shreds. All in all, the Quanta Vandal was a huge surprise and very powerful. You can mod it entirely around electricity and for any other status effect that you would like. Worth getting 100% and super underrated. And that pretty much concludes this list for primaries. Let me know in the comments below if you have any underrated primary recommendations and if you have any secondary suggestions, since that's the next episode. Thank you all for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did making this video. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And if you enjoy seeing stuff like this, just let me know in the comments below. A massive thank you to all of our amazing channel members. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for your support. All right, enjoy these weapons now. There are more to come. Bye.